Good evening. Before we begin, we have an announcement. It will be helpful for us to have ushers during our services.
What does
and
an usher do?
our lead usher is here to tell us more.
Just short and sweet and to the point. We do have some ushers. We could use a few more. So if any of you, it begins, the high holidays begin this coming Sunday evening, Erev, Rosh Hashanah. So if any one of you would like to help us usher, just let me know right after this is over, and we'll be happy to have you. It's not hard work, but we just need people to check cards and enter people in, wish everyone a Happy New Year.
I'm on the welcoming committee.
Oh.
I mean, I was already
Is that a separate item?
Yes.
I don't know anything about that. I'm just worried about ushers.
Isabel said that to me.
Oh, okay.
So be aware that some people...
Whatever.
Okay.
So if you would like to usher, I'll be happy to have you.
Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Return to who you are, return to where you are. Return to where you are, born and reborn again. Return to who you are. Return to where you are. Return to what you are, born and reborn again. Return again. Return again. Return to the land of your soul.
Decidedly competition. This is the second of our High Holy Day workshops. And the emphasis will be more towards Yom Kippur. Last time it was more towards Rosh Hashanah. And the intent is to take what we did last time a little bit deeper. Rabbi Tom and I are using this to our own benefit, preparing ourselves for the services, and you're welcome to come along. And it's in working with this with you that we actually deepen ourselves and prepare ourselves to risk still more exposure. Perhaps we'll begin with a chavruta exercise. That means sharing with somebody else, exploring one particular issue, aloud with each other. And the issue is, how do you prepare for Yom Kippur? Do you fast for the day of Yom Kippur itself? How do you prepare for that fast? How do you prepare physically? How do you prepare emotionally? Is there intellectual? Is there spiritual preparation? Well, this is going to be the spiritual preparation, or hopefully some of it. But physically, emotionally, how do you prepare for that day? Is there preparation you do?
And another aspect to the question, in addition to preparing for fasting, if there is anything you do to prepare for fasting, how do you prepare for Yom Kippur that's different from ways that you might prepare for Rosh Hashanah? So you can find a partner, and in groups of 2 or 3, talk amongst yourselves and share a few thoughts and ideas, and we'll come back together as a group.
So share with each other aloud, please.
Want to be an eloquent listener? I thought of something actually, because I assumed it might be last week, and I said it 2 weeks ago, about I wanted to invoke the memory of my father, so I talked about how when I was growing up, he would tear toilet paper, we would turn off lights, and he would prepare the apartment as much as possible so we didn't have to do any books, real work. Conservative, my parents were so for Yom Kippur, I don't do that. But what I do for Yom Kippur, it's the one day a year. I do not talk on the phone. I don't put on the TV for the news. And the only time I put on the radio or the computer, last year that was Rosh Hashanah. If I should not be here, like if I'm preparing to break the fast, I would listen to the service on the radio while I'm doing what I'm doing to prepare the fast. So it's like the one who talked about it. Rick Katz talked about trying to shrink down his workload. I kind of shrink the load. Only on Yom Kippur. Oh, what a great metaphor.
This is going to be a long day, crowded, and you're creating but that is how I believe we are. Put it together early.
I'm here almost all the time. I don't know how unpleasant something is.
That's because you're a lawyer and you're a practicing lawyer.
I'm not going to wait until it'll be a long day.
Do you drink?
No. Although it's salad, I eat some drinks.
Well, he's got to. He's working.
So I come home, getting my fast, and he's sitting there. Blue shoe, whatever.
I remember seeing when I was sitting on the beamer for one rabbi or another, a glass of water on the shelf.
On my porch, we were supposed to be, and my daughter was supposed to leave at 1.
I would imagine you were raised traditional.
No, totally not.
No?
No, we went to museums. Yeah.
Oh, how fun.
Joe. Yes. That's true. Yes.
But he was still a cultural Jew.
Socialist, not a...
He objected to the membership thing with the synagogues and stuff. You know, he was a real
Maybe it was more than a socialist. That sounds communist. Another thing that I thought of going back to my father,
Friends, let's come back together.
Not to eat salt.
These are the things that we did. We'll go through them very quickly. But first, I'll share with you that, Tom's preparation, as he shared it with me, is to review the liturgy for Yom Kippur. My preparation is to take a lot of carbohydrates. Our immediate response was traditional work. Obviously we both do spiritual, and we both eat and we drink. But you can come from the top down or from the bottom up. So carbohydrates leading up to the spiritual experience of Yom Kippur and the fasting, working with the liturgy, and then getting back down to making sure you're still in the book of life by the time the holiday finishes. You want to go very quickly? We can read.
Well, this is what we wrote last week. Yeah, you want to go through that?
I just want to see what we wrote.
Okay. Like beginning with the, I think we did the physical first, yeah? Physical preparation. So this is all for Rosh Hashanah.
Honey apples, tickets, reservations, eating meals, brisket, kugel, round challah, family business, clearing calendars, forgiving people, shofar, music, trucks, smelling salts, greeting cards, emails. Okay, that was physical. And then from the physical, we went to the emotional. How many weren't here last week?
Were or were not?
We're not here?
No, we're not.
No, we're not here.
Not here.
Well, you should have been. You want to explain Pardes very quickly? So that.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a good idea. All right. We were talking about preparing for the High Holy Days within the context of the four worlds, understanding that there are four dimensions to our experience. And this is a Kabbalistic model. We might think of it beginning with the physical, down here on this level, and then the emotional, then the intellectual, and then the spiritual. And all these dimensions need attention. And there are different ways that we might prepare ourselves in each of those different dimensions. And so, talking about the physical, how we prepare ourselves and, what we eat, making reservations and all the other physical details you need to think about. Then we come to the emotional dimensions of preparation. And the lines of distinction between one dimension and another are not always so clearly defined. Connecting with the past, with family, cemetery visits, reaching out, reaching in, reconnecting with the congregational family. Anything else for Yom Kippur, though? I think there's more in this category for Yom Kippur.
What do we leave out as Yom Kippur approaches?
Didn't leave anything out, but Erev Yom Kippur, we light our Yortzeit candles, so there's a period of remembrance.
Right. It's not lit for Rosh Hashanah. There are candles lit for Rosh Hashanah, and then there are candles lit for Yom Kippur. Are the candles lit before dinner or after dinner?
We light them before we come to temple. Yeah.
In that case, Yom Kippur started and you can't eat.
I'm sorry. Okay. It's a diet. Think of it as a diet.
I mean, the memorial candle you can light anytime. There's no blessing
I'm
if
talking about the
you light
Yortzeit
it.
candle.
But I remember coming here and there isn't a kiddush for Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
So there isn't a Borei Pri Hagafen. There is a Hamotzi for the meal before Yom Kippur, but you light your candles after the meal. Because as soon as you light the candles, it's Yom Kippur. Can't eat. You've been doing it wrong all this time. Well, you have something more to ask forgiveness for.
But I think emotionally, there's a heightened emotional thing going on just before Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is preparation, and we have those 10 days, but this is when it's like the end of the marathon. You sprint to the finish line.
Well, by the end of Yom Kippur, we're sprinting. But at the beginning of Yom Kippur, I always experienced it very heavy. One, I've eaten too much, and it's weighing in there. I've been better in recent years. But the Kol Nidre, I was sharing, Kol Nidre. Traditionally, it's sung 3 times. You remember, I'm looking at some Chavurah people, the way we used to do it in the Chavurah, to do it 3 times. And each time with a different kavanah. So you hear, well, last time we did, do you know High Holy Nusa? Can you do the Baruch Hu?
Yeah.
This was the awesome tone that one associates with Rosh Hashanah. This is the Nusa of Rosh Hashanah. We're singing. that's Rosh Hashanah. So as soon as you hear that and its preparation, you know it's getting close, and then of course you hear it on Rosh Hashanah. But Yom Kippur, it's Kol Nidre. This is where we miss Alan. But Alan, we miss you. Alan is up in the sanctuary with the choir.
In fact, after this session tonight, I invite you all to come over with us, and we'll go and hear the choir sing.
Oh, that's
That'd be good.
It's good because it gives them some exposure. It also gives us some familiarity.
Can you speak a little louder?
Kol Nidre. Emotionally now, not the spiritual content, but the emotional content of Kol Nidre. Hearing that Kol Nidre, and that's it, and one is gone. Then you're in Yom Kippur.
There's something really powerful about that melody. I mean, I think we all have come to resonate with it by this point. But I heard a story about how there was a Holocaust survivor whose family had been dispersed, and after the Holocaust he was in search of his son. And he knew that his son knew that melody, and he had like a little organ or something that he played that he carried around with him, and he would go from town to town playing that song to see if any of the children recognized it. And there were Jewish children who recognized it. He could tell that they were Jewish by the fact that they recognized it. And I don't think he ever found his son, but he did help many Jewish children return to their roots and remember their identity. The song, has, there are many traditions about its origin. Some say that it was sung by the conversos, the converts after the conquest in Spain, and that they would go into their basements and sing this song about how even though they had, taken an oath to Christianity, that they, that still they were absolved from that their words and their vows had been nullified by this ritual.
But also it's in future tense, which is somewhat confusing. It's all these vows and these restrictions and these abstinences that I take upon myself from this time through next year. May I be forgiven for not fulfilling them. What do you make out of that? It's in Aramaic also, it's not Hebrew. I've heard in the course of this Yom Kippur, I might make resolutions. You ever made New Year's resolutions?
All the time.
Whether secular or Rosh Hashanah. I may take on too many stringencies in the spiritual depth of the day. I know ahead of time I'm not going to be able to keep them all. I'm going to give it a shot, my best shot, and forgive me in advance for any failure I might have, which kind of relieves one of some fears. But the truth is, I don't know what it means. Never have.
It's something that I have seen written negatively about in some of the Christian press, saying that's why you can't trust Jews. That they say ahead of time at the beginning of the year, I'm not going to keep my promises. Comment.
But you can trust Jews. That's silly.
But I have heard that. I think that's historically true.
Yes. That if you already say, I'm going to take on vows, maybe with you, my Christian neighbor, but I've already asked for forgiveness that I'm not going to keep it.
A matter of interpretation.
Keep talking, I'm going to look at it. No, I don't need Google, I need words.
Within the context of perhaps its origins during the Inquisition, when people were forced, in order to survive, to take vows that they really didn't believe in, in that context, it's understandable the question that came to my mind just now in this discussion is, why has the tradition continued forward with that prayer now that we are free?
We don't know. I just looked very quickly through the Aramaic. I was hoping that it would tell us that all the O's and the vowels and the absences that we have vowed from this Yom Kippur to next Yom Kippur, between you and me, God.
But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't say that. So,
You look at this translation that let all our vows and oaths.
that's wrong.
Oh, it's wrong.
Yes.
But it's like it's like the breaking of the glass during a wedding. It's like its origins, some scholars say was, it began as smashing a plate against a wall to frighten away spirits. And even though I've heard rabbis long ago tried to do away with the custom, it was such a popular custom they couldn't. And I think the same goes with Kol Nidre. It's just people had become a tradition that you just vows, VOWS, promises, oaths.
Neder, bli neder. This is bli neder. You know that expression.
I don't see a real conflict there, because being very into the holiday, to the event, my desires may be way beyond my physical capabilities, may be unrealistic, maybe circumstances will not allow for me to do what I want or I feel I should be doing. So it's recognizing that I'm not all that powerful and all that control, that I may be wrong. I may be overestimating what I can do, and being a little bit more humble in that regard.
Very sensible way of understanding it. Though if we think about a rational encounter with this prayer and our emotional encounter with it, I think the emotional side of it wins out.
Yeah.
Ben wanted to.
That is so true. Therefore, why should we go under the pretense of making a statement instead of prefacing it with saying, I hope I can? And that makes you being truthful and being trustworthy.
I think it's simply because this is not a rational prayer. One, it's in Aramaic, which you understand like Greek. And then, you understand Greek?
Don't we all?
Don't we all, right? It isn't a rational, it's not a rational event. It's an emotional event. And we can't do away with it. And we can't change the words. Well, you may if you like. You may if you like. But I don't know that we can. Nor am I aware of any attempt reasonably to do so. To do away with it, yes, but the people won't permit it. And again, as soon as I hear that refrain, Kol Nidre, I am gone.
I'm reading the diaries of Mordecai Kaplan, who was the founder of the Reconstructionist movement, and in the early 30s at the Society for Advancement of Judaism in New York, in the Upper West Side, he tried getting rid of Kol Nidre because the reasons we're all talking about. And it lasted about 2 years. And it basically, Kol Nidre or you.
That's it. I mean, it is not a rational thing. And you're a very rational person, except when it comes to puns, which are spiritual in nature.
But the repetition is almost impossible.
Wait, I want to hear that.
They are rational.
You think they're rational, but they're not. Puns. He's a punster.
He's a punny.
Okay.
I said that there's a certain comfort in the repetition, whether it fits in or whether we should take it out, but it's there. It's been said before me and by my father before him, et cetera, and that's what keeps a lot of it there.
That's
Here
it.
you are, connecting with the past.
That's it.
I agree with that for me, it's that history of knowing that it's been repeated generation generation. But because I never knew what the prayer meant, to me, the music is very poignant and very soulful and very sad, and it just evokes all of the different sadnesses that we've had to deal with over the generations. So it's always been a very poignant song for me without knowing anything else about it.
Before we move on to the next, though, with regard to the emotional part, you know, there's the idea that on Rosh Hashanah our deeds are written, inscribed in the book, or our names are inscribed in the book of life. And then on Yom Kippur, the book is sealed. Mm-hmm. And there's this sense of judgment and being judged and judging ourselves. Does that call forth any other kind of response with regard to preparation?
I think something is missing important here. In Hebrew we call it Yom HaNoraim, Days of Atonement.
Excuse me, Yom HaNoraim does not mean Days of Atonement, it means Days of Awe.
I know, but it's called also Yaim Noraim.
Yes, Days of Awe.
Yes. But the question is the following: what is easier, to pardon or to ask for pardon?
That's interesting.
Can you repeat the question?
The answer is yes. The question is, what is easier, to pardon or to ask for pardon? And it's up to Louis, it all depends. But that's not here, that's on another page. We'll come back to it.
Isn't that the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Isn't that the 10 days that you...
That's right.
Ask for...
I'm sorry, we couldn't
the
hear.
10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that really is the time when you're going through that process of forgiving others and praying for forgiveness. Right?
Since you talk about the book closing, I think for many of us it brings up the issue of death, the death of people we have loved, who we've lost in the past year, which is why we had it, and about our own purpose in life for the next year. It's not just will God judge us or will we get too old to be around, but you know, what are we doing to make it worth keeping us on this planet?
Right. That's right. And along with that, will we be inscribed in the book of life in the year to come? Will our loved ones? I mean, and this whole conflict, this gets a little complicated. When something awful happens to a loved one, does that mean that they did something wrong or they're being punished or something?
Wrong page.
The spiritual page?
I'll tell you one of the things that you've done many years ago, that Diane and I have known each other for several decades. We used to write in the Book of Life. And this is if you want an emotional catharsis, try this one. You begin with a blank piece of paper. You write at the top, I am writing this as Rosh Hashanah approaches this, or I'm writing this during the days of awe, Yamim HaNoraim. And I do not know if I will live, to the next Yom Kippur. In the event that I do not live, I'm writing this to this loved one. Then you write another one to this loved one, and another page to this loved one, to be opened only in case I do not live to the next Yom Kippur, and then seal it. And then you put that with your documents that should be there, in the event of your demise, so that your loved ones find something other than legalese, and they have a letter that is written to them by you. Then next Yom Kippur, next Rosh Hashanah, open it, read it, and say, that's what I wrote. Rip it up and write a new one. So if you want emotional catharsis, try that one. I haven't done it in years. But I did do it.
It's like an ethical will workshop.
Yes.
It's an ethical will workshop, yes. But especially poignant between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Hi.
It's also good for students to do.
Well, you're a student.
No, but, well, I'm thinking because I had a death and dying class that I taught, and that's something that I would have the kids do, and it really made them think. And I could see them doing something like that in the religious school that may make them appreciate parents.
What age were the students?
High school?
High school, maybe. It's a very, I mean, you can imagine what it's like. Actually try it and go beyond imagination. Just one letter for the entire family. And the exercise is writing in the book of life. Why wait to be written? Do your own writing.
I like that.
Such chutzpah. Okay.
Especially a separate one for the door.
Intellectual preparation. Prior to Rosh Hashanah, we thought it would involve cleansing, maybe inside and out, preparing, reading, study, introspection, paying attention to the liturgical editions, special passages just for the High Holy Days, and a discussion of the Book of Life.
I don't know what page it goes on. I don't know what page,
Well, tell me.
but I try to make use of the day. It's a long day, and it's shorter every year, actually. And the fast is easier every year. The day is never long enough.
Can you hear? We'll repeat it.
No. Can you hear me? There you go. I try to make use of the day. So how do you prepare to make best use of the day? If you're not in the habit of clearing your mind and engaging in meditative exercises, you try to get clear to make the best use of the day. I think it's emotional, but it's also intellectual. It means that the things that are extraneous, they need to be intentionally set aside. And simply the mind or the brain or the heart has to open for whatever use one can make of the only day you have when you sit there all day and have only one purpose. So
that's not something we're used to doing, really clearing our calendar or schedules, not dealing with any errands or other trivial things. This is the time to really think about,
And if I have any
life.
level of anxiety about the day as I approach the day, it has to do with my concern that I may not be able to accomplish that.
Right, make the best use of it.
Make the best use. The day will come and go. I was not there.
Sophia?
Yes, I like to listen to music and find something, usually something new, and some inspiring stuff that I have in the days before Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Sylvia says, in the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Yamim HaNoraim, the 10 days of awe, she likes to listen to music as a way of preparation.
Like specifically the High Holy Day music or just other kinds?
Oh, no, specifically related to High Holy Day music.
High Holy Day music.
Mm-hmm.
You have the recordings?
I have recordings, yeah. And even on YouTube, you can hear Barbara Streisand sing Avinu Malkeinu. I mean, there's all kinds of
YouTube, you
stuff.
can hear Barbara Streisand. Unless we're singing Avinu Malkeinu.
But that's not what I usually listen to, but there's all kinds of stuff available.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to divorce myself from the world entirely. It's the one day a year I don't answer the telephone. I don't put on the computer. I only put on the radio to listen to A to 80 if I'm going to be preparing breaks of fast. There were years until I moved to South Florida that I didn't drive on Yontif. Here, it's an impossibility, so you have to drive. But I try to cut off the entire world. We were talking about it before. And I don't know that it's intellectual or emotional, but I feel the relief of the world off my shoulders for that one day.
Were you in Jerusalem for Yom Kippur? Do you remember it?
I remember it was so hot that the chief rabbi said it was okay to drink water.
Wow. But everything stops on Yom Kippur. Yeah. In Jerusalem, you walk down the middle of the streets. There are various things you are not supposed to do on Yom Kippur. Turn on your computer and answer your telephone are new things. Of course, you wouldn't do those on Shabbat either. But unique to Yom Kippur are, you are not to eat, drink, have sexual relations, actually bathe or anoint yourself. At least anoint yourself.
Wear leather, right?
Wear leather. Certainly not leather on the bottom of your feet. So you see a lot of people wearing sneakers. So it's a day of abstinence. And the traditional color to wear in Yom Kippur is white. And the garment you are to wear is a kittel. You wear the garment the man is married in, and also the garment the man is buried in.
You want a job? Get your job.
There's only one member of our congregation who every year, God bless him, wears white. And that's Jack Schillinger.
It still fits in all these years.
You're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day. Except on Yom Kippur. Before we leave that, before we leave this, I'd like please to turn to page 327. Because this is a liturgical element that appears over and over and over again if one looks at the traditional Machzor. But we have elements of it here. And this requires some examination. The literary form, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Debarnu, Dofe, Avinu, Behirshanu, Zadnu, Chamasnu, Talnu, Shakir. The liturgical form is an acrostic. It's Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, all the way through. There are a great many acrostics in the Holy Day liturgy, especially Yom Kippur. In the afternoon Piyutim, they're mostly all acrostics. We don't have them so much in our Machzor. This is called a Machzor. It's a cycle. The word Machzor means cycle. So it's a cycle from Rosh Hashanah through Yom Kippur. The ordinary prayer book is called the Siddur, which is the order of prayer. But this is a cycle from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Yes?
I heard somebody ask why we don't do those things that were just mentioned on Yom Kippur. Maybe you could address that. I know.
Well, you did in the fact that abstinence, right?
The things that we don't do.
Right. Why not wear leather?
Afflicting oneself, right,
yes,
was the idea, the old idea.
It's a day in which one confronts one's mortality. So you wear the garment you're going to be buried in. You do not eat or drink. You feel your body shutting down. Those of us who fast the full day know that by late afternoon the body is shutting down. It's retaining water. It's expending muscle. It's there's a different physiological feel to it. Yes, Rick?
When did these behaviors or trappings come into effect? Did they start in the desert?
No.
Or were they 14th century?
No, I'll tell you, it's Mishnaic. So it's 100 years before the destruction of the temple, during the time of the people of the Great Assembly, up through the Mishnah. By the formulation of the Mishnah, it was established.
So were they enacted by the Sanhedrin? Were they enacted?
Well, the Sanhedrin is a court, but they were certainly voted on the Academy in Yavne, and even before.
What prompted
The cycle of the year is outlined in Torah, but the customs, with rare exceptions, are determined by the rabbis. And whereas the observance in the time of the Torah was priestly and relating to God as king and presenting gifts to God as king in the form of korbanot, gifts that would draw us close, the rabbis made the transition to God as Father, and a Father desiring words and behaviors, obedience, and no longer giving gifts. And so the cycle of the year was transformed accordingly, and all the festivals and the observances were transformed. And that's written down in the oral law in the Mishnah, and elaborated on in the Talmud, and then later in the codes. So it's only for the last 2,000 years we've been doing this.
And I might add that...
But they had a start, excuse me, they had a starting point that wasn't biblical, and it was decided by men, whether it was men, and it could be, therefore, changed by men.
What?
I'm just trying to understand where it all came from.
But you have it. It comes from God. Let me give you the rabbinic point of view. The oral Torah was received by Moshe at Sinai and passed down to Joshua and to the judges and so forth. And it is regarded in Jewish tradition as you know, the same really as written Torah. In fact, virtually everything we do comes from the oral Torah. The written Torah gives us the outline. So Yom Kippur is listed in the written Torah, but how to observe it is in the oral Torah. And now, can we change it? The answer is, who is we? You can change it, but we are rabbis.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll say that it became known as Yom Hadin, the Day of Judgment. And I think this theme of judgment really came to dominate, and all the customs accrued around that.
Let me see. It would be wonderful to find it. But I want to, there's Yom Din Badin. Listen to the Yom Din Badin, the Day of Judgment, Yai Di 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 Di, Yom Din Badin. There's a hymn that goes like that. You know, just hammers it home and hammers it home and hammers it home. Alliteration, a lot of alliteration in these poems. The poems were meant to be recited aloud as not only liturgy but litany. If you look now, page 327, and an example of the alphabet. This presents some difficulties. Shamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu, Dofi, Avinu, Vishanu. We are guilty, we have committed treason, we have swindled, we have spoken slander, we have committed sins, we have done awful things, we have, and it's 22 of them.
He knows me well.
I know.
But I think that when you recite that, we have, we're saying we have, not me.
All of us.
All of us, but not me. I mean, I didn't slander, I didn't do this, but I'm saying it for all of us.
Yes, you didn't do any of that.
No.
I know her.
No.
Yes. I have a question that I never understood. When it's the Day of Atonement for sins that you have done yourself, whatever. But then, on the other hand, if it's something that you have hurt somebody, it's not included there. You have to go directly to the person and ask that person for forgiveness. Why isn't that included in the whole thing? Why do you have to go to somebody that you feel you have hurt or that you have done wrong directly to the person?
There are two types of transgressions. There's a transgression against your fellow person. It's your responsibility to take care of that. And not to do it on Yom Kippur, you have to do it well before. So, you know, if you transgress against somebody, you've caused somebody damage, you're to ask for forgiveness immediately. You're not to say, well, I have until Yom Kippur. No, you do that immediately. And then as the day approaches, you know, things come to mind that you might have done, and so you're in touch with those people and ask for forgiveness. That's not part of this. That's for you to do on your own. This is a community exercise. So, you know, you sinned against another person. That's not in here.
Yeah, but I thought that you have to before by Yom Kippur.
Yes, you do. You do.
Directly to the person.
That's right.
Yes, you do, directly to the person. And that's not in here. I've heard twice, by the way, you know, if you ask a person 3 times, it's as if you're forgiven, and then the sin is on the other person for not forgiving you. That's not the case.
Where did I hear that? I heard that too.
Yeah, I mean, twice recently I've heard that. That's not the case. You're not to pursue the other person because then you acquire additional transgression that's called being a nudge, which is a serious transgression. But you have no control, actually, over whether the other person forgives you or not. Therefore, it's quite clear in the Talmud, it says, between transgressions against God and transgressions against your fellow person, much better to transgress against God, because God's always available for forgiveness, and this is the process for forgiveness from God. But from your fellow person, you're at the mercy of the other person. Now, the other person can acquire, you know, guilt also, but you're still not forgiven. So, don't do that.
Question here.
In this book that I've been reading, I can't vouch for its authority, but it says...
Say it again, please.
This book that I've been reading in preparation, that, and I can't vouch for its authority in terms of who it's quoting and where it's getting the information, I have it with me, says that if somebody asks you an oral honesty for forgiveness, it is your, this is the word I can't remember, that's not responsibility, not your duty, it's something is wrong if you do not accept that.
Yes, you know, is there something wrong if you can't forgive a person? Sure. You're going to be holding a whole bunch of bad feelings in you if you can't work this out. But you're not required to do it. You can walk around and suffer with all this resentment and let it burn you up. But don't do that.
Isn't one of the sins not to forgive someone? Isn't it considered a sin not to forgive? Someone comes and comes and comes. You said it's not true the 3 times, so I don't know which.
Sure, you can acquire guilt and sin and shame and resentment and all that stuff.
So we become the sinner by not forgiving.
But it doesn't forgive the other person.
No, we're separated.
Yeah.
So what is it, not 3 times, but? What's the number? I read sometimes 18 times. 18 times.
I'd go with 3. But just the point is to make an earnest effort.
And hope the person does forgive you.
Can I split the difference? And we can refer to a couple of attorneys in the room. What would happen if you acknowledge, I accept and I acknowledge that you are apologizing to me, but in my heart of hearts, I'm saying to this guy,
Forget it.
Right, forget it. So can you at least accept and acknowledge that they're trying to...
All I can tell you is that you are at the mercy of the person you are asking forgiveness from. Is that, I just ended a sentence with my preposition, and I ask for forgiveness. But
I accept your acknowledgement of having ended a sentence.
We know of instances in which a person chooses to hold resentment and cherishes it, and absolutely refuses to forgive. I would be astonished if there wasn't somebody in your family like that. It's there, and it's usually over a wedding invitation.
But if you've made the effort.
When do we forgive ourselves? I always heard that we need to forgive ourselves before we forgive anyone else.
I don't know where you heard that. There was that you have to give for yourself before you forgive anybody else. To hold on to resentment is an awful transgression. Moses did it for 40 years. What do you think the burning bush was? What burns and is never consumed? And the answer is resentment. But this is the collective, Ashamnu Bagadna, But I didn't personally do any of these things. But somewhere in the community it was done. And there's a collective of first person plural. So this is a major part of Yom Kippur. There's no letter of the alphabet that hasn't, I haven't transgressed it.
What page?
It's page 327.
Now, we were speaking earlier about the development of these rituals and the liturgy, which did occur over the course of many centuries. One central passage, section of the liturgy is called Unetana Tokef. Does that sound familiar to anyone? It's a very moving prayer that's embedded in the Amidah, the Tefillah, so it's kind of at a climactic point in the service. And there's a legend that goes along with it. It was supposedly written by or attributed to Rabbi Amnon of Mayence. And the story goes that the local bishop had summoned him to have him convert to Christianity. You've heard the story?
Sure.
And to get out of it, he said, "Well, give me 3 days, and and then I'll let you know." So at least it gave him some time to think about it. But then he began to regret that he even suggested, just by saying, "Give me 3 days," suggested the possibility that he would even consider such a thing. And so he didn't return in 3 days, and they came to get him, and I think they ended up, there was some kind of gruesome tale about how they cut off his limbs and his tongue or something, and it's awful. But the bottom line is this: a deep sense of contrition and vulnerability. What you make of that?
It's gruesome.
That's why we kind of talk about this gruesome.
Yeah.
It was. He had lost his arms, his legs. He was carried into the synagogue at this point in the service and said, "Unetana Tokef, let us declare the immediacy of this moment." That one does it. That the sense of exposure. Fear of God is not a good expression. Even awe of God is not a good expression. Exposure before God would be better. Mm-hmm. Exposure is what you feel when you're standing at the edge of a cliff and you're not in your comfort zone. Some people can be at their comfort zone with their toes over the edge. A quick story about Sydney and Mabel are on a bus and they're going to Grand Canyon. And they can see the Grand Canyon. Sydney's looking out the window. Mabel gets off the bus and looks and says, "Sydney, you got to come out here and look." Says, "I can see it." So Ro'eh is the first part of Yirah, of being, full exposure. So finally he gets off the bus and says, "It's different out here outside the bus. It's different." He says, "Get closer." Says, "I can see it from here. What do I need to get closer for?" He gets closer, says, "Wow, I didn't realize it was so big." He says, wait till you get closer still. And so you can imagine getting closer still. That's exposure. And to have that sense of exposure before the Holy One is what one is looking for, certainly by Yom Kippur afternoon.
And I think it's expressed beautifully in this famous passage, part of the Unetana Tokef prayer, which I'm reading here on page 313. On Rosh Hashanah it is written, on Yom Kippur it is sealed. How many shall pass on, and how many shall come to be? Who shall live, and who shall die? And this is a very famous, this has become part of us and part of the whole experience. And it goes through this whole long list of possible ways that our lives might come to an end. But, on page 314, Uteshuvah, utefillah, utzedakah, ma'avirin et roa hagazera. But repentance, prayer, and charity temper judgment's severe decree.
This can be understood here in the intellectual part, and here in the spiritual part. That is the key line of liturgy for the holy days. Teshuvah, repentance, tzedakah, righteous action or charity, tefillah, prayer, ma'avirin et roa hagezera. They can sweeten, alter, change for the better, ma'avirin. Et roa hagezera, the evil of the decree. So in the intellectual side, it doesn't change the decree. It changes the way in which you see it. I'm going to have the privilege of speaking on Yom Kippur morning. I don't have to decide what I'm going to talk about. That's so far away. It's
far away, right.
Way on the other side of Rosh Hashanah. But one of the things that I'm considering, so I won't do it, the difference between battling a disease and treating a disease. You hear the difference? I battle, I'm fighting against a disease. I'm treating a disease. Once one flips that switch, it averts the evil of the decree. You still have the disease, but one is treating it the way you would treat your schnauzers. I have to treat my lymphomas. My teacher actually told me that. You learn from your spiritual director, really. In one sentence, you learn a couple of chapters. It was Zalman Schachter Shalomi, in a conversation I had with him some months ago. I asked him how he was. So he told me how he was spiritually. I asked him how he was. He told me what he was writing. I asked him how he was. He said even his wife and he were doing great. And I asked him how he was. And he said, well, I'm of an age when things happen to a person, so I have to treat my lymphomas. And he said it like, I have to treat my schnauzers. I have to take care of my puppies. I have these things inside of me. I have to take care of them. You know how different that is from battling against them.
That's an acceptance.
I take care of them. They are chasing me with the intent of killing me. So I have to, one, take care of them, but I also have to stop them. I asked him a couple months later how he was doing. He said, oh, they're gone. He says, a little radiation, they went away. So that's Roa Hagazera. But when you turn the page, you begin to ask the question, what about the evil verdict itself? Can I change that? Now that's not rational anymore. Yes?
I'm stuck on the metaphor, the detail in it rather than the point of cancer treatment, because it's so harmful to the host, the good cells as well as the bad cells. And it's just you're sort of hoping that it's going to be stronger bad for the bad cells than for your own system, but that keeps you going. At least that's been my...
No, hoping is... I'm not saying one is correct and one is not.
I guess that way of thinking about it is hard to get away from, that it's a battle. If to go through it, you have to realize, my understanding is, that you're doing really severe harm to yourself, just to make sure you've done even more severe harm to the cancer.
I'm not saying...
But like I said, I'm getting stuck on the...
I hear that, and I don't know... Clearly, I'm not going to give that sermon, because I'm doing it right now. But I was going to until this morning. You have to know what a battle is. Most people have never been in a real battle. A real battle is not filled with anger. I'm a military man, if you go back far enough down several layers. We were never angry. We were never enraged. We never really thought we were in a battle. we were doing the appropriate things at the moment to remove an enemy, ideally with as little collateral damage as possible. Now that's what chemotherapy is. It's removing an enemy with as little collateral damage as possible. The truth was the battles that were engaged in, the collateral damage was terrible. It was Vietnam. But we who were fighting it, I was a combatant. I wasn't the chaplain. We were never angry at the enemy. It was a process to go through and to be careful with. And the extraordinary thing is, in Vietnam, I can go back to Ho Chi Minh City and sit with an ex-MiG-21 pilot. And the two of us, no anger between us, just a recognition of the sorrow that was. It's an extraordinary thing. Civilians rarely have an understanding of what battle is. They look at Rambo or something.
Yeah, but I don't know that that's... that may be true for you, but I'm not sure that that's true. I mean, because when you... I don't know that you can kill someone in battle without having...
We're getting away from this. This is worthy of another discussion. But it's the roll-up of the Gezeira to change. Now, the real question is, can you change the decree? Can I say some magic words and have it go away? Rabbi?
No.
Oh. But that isn't what you said. You said, can I change the evil of the decree?
No, the evil of the decree is in the rational area.
Why? I'm stuck on that, though, because I don't know why death has to be seen as evil. It may be seen as unfortunate at a certain point, so on and so forth. But
I mean, as you say, you can change the evil of the decree. The decree ultimately is you leave the world. But it doesn't have to be an evil. It can be, so that's rational. That's rational and emotional. But the question that we're often asked is, can you change the decree? Can you do something that makes the disease go away?
Well, according to your briefing, that's what we do. Attitude toward the disease. It tells us what to do in order to change that decree from next year. Now, for me, it's very hard to accept that, like you mentioned, Robert, that if someone dies the next year, is it because they were not forgiven? I mean, at what point do we know if we're forgiven? In the Catholic faith, they go on Sundays, they confess, and they tell you to go and do, 20 Padre Nuestros, whatever.
Wow, that's...
And then it's like an absolution or...
Absolve.
Yeah, absolve on that same Sunday. We are supposed to follow all these Yom Kippur prayers, meditations, and ask for forgiveness and ask for forgiveness from God, from ourselves, and then we're supposed to just sit and be judged and maybe be punished the next year.
It does present problems, the theology, the theodicy of it, and we have to understand that these are ways of thinking that evolved from a long time ago, and we wrestle with them still, but we have to find a way that of understanding them that works for us and doesn't allows us to retain elements of the tradition, but understand them in a new way. I'd like to hear from you.
This is a little off the beaten path. When this gentleman was talking about cancer treatment. My husband was diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer. He didn't look sick, he didn't act sick. We treated it with chemo, with pills. We were very, very hopeful. In 4 months, he lost his battle to cancer. But if we wouldn't have tried the chemo, this was his decision, we'd have thought, maybe. We're not even trying. No, he didn't win the battle. But he didn't realize also that he was dying because we were very up about it and everything was good and everything was going to get better. And then he went into the hospital because he was having a few problems with the chemo to get regulated. And we really thought, well, I thought, and he did too, he would go in and get adjusted and come back out because he went in not good. Well, he went from a regular room to intensive care to hospice. He lasted in hospice 5 hours. I jokingly said, I guess he didn't like hospice very much. And, but we were hopeful. Hopeful didn't work, but at least we were hopeful and we tried. And that's all you can do.
That seems like a good example of what we've been talking about, whether it changes the evil of the decree. I prefer the word severity, but there are different ways of interpreting it. But wow, I mean,
it sounds like there was a wonderful relationship.
Carla. I just want to respond. It sounds to me, from my perspective about death and experience, for you, hopeful did work because you had such a blessed death experience.
Yes, he really did.
Such a positive death experience, so hopeful absolutely worked in the final days of living. Hospice, the first thing hospice tells you is you're living, you're not dying. You say that too. I've heard you say that too.
The question of change the decree, just kind of rubs me the wrong way because I don't know what the decree is. I don't know what the final decision has been made. I could make a rational guess as to what the odds are. But, you know, just as we all have experience and know of people that have beat the odds or things worked out or things look good and prove disastrous, we don't know. And if I'm going to worry about changing something that I have no way of knowing, then I'm taking a lot of energy and putting it someplace where it's not being at all constructive. It's being actually destructive. And, just as was described, just trying to do the best that I can in dealing with or treating, as the case may be, or handling a situation, and be able to enjoy other things at the same time would seem to be the best pathway. Now, I may not always be able to do that, but again, I don't know the final decree.
I have lunch periodically with a colleague from the conservative movement. And he complains bitterly about an Orthodox colleague. I don't have lunch with the Orthodox colleague, with the conservative. at least, in synagogue life. I have a lot of Orthodox friends and colleagues, but this is a synagogue rabbi. And he says, as soon as somebody is ill, this rabbi shows up and the family flocks to him because he is praying for a reversal of the core disease, not for the severity of the disease, but for the, mumbo jumbo that's going to change the disease. And he says, these are perfectly rational people, members of a conservative shul, who go to the Orthodox because the Orthodox rabbi will pray for the change of the disease, whereas this conservative rabbi, who was raised in reason, won't do it.
It's like chicken soup. It can't hurt.
But if you are... That's the whole essay. It's like chicken soup. It won't hurt. But he won't give the chicken soup because it flies in the face of reason. And I keep telling him, chicken soup. Give the chicken soup.
Sorry.
That wasn't what I said. I said,
where are you going?
What does it hurt? Pray that it changes completely. He says, but it flies in the face of reason. And I said, whose reason? He says, but all the doctors say, this is what it is. That's what it is. The person's going to die. I can't. I said, how do you know? How do you know? You're putting more faith in the doctors than you are in God. And that's why the people are going to the Orthodox rabbi. The answer is you give a petition, that flies in the face of reason. Reason is, Tom and I have been really working through this. Reason is a barrier to spiritual growth. You come up against the barriers of reason, and you refuse to go through it. Well, it doesn't make any sense up there. That's correct. Doesn't make any sense. So what harm does it do to pray beyond reason? And this is what, none of the things we've been talking about Yom Kippur make much sense. You know, we have to get beyond reason here.
There have been scientific studies done recently about the power of prayer. And
yeah, they're all questionable by rational minds.
I'm
serious about that.
But what's not questionable is that prayer changes us. It's not about whether there is a God, a master intelligence who's listening to every petition. It's about what it does to us. Right. And if I have some kind of dread disease and I am praying that the course of it be reversed, I am engaged with it, in treating it, in coming to terms with it, in doing something that I wouldn't be if I were playing mahjong instead, or watching TV. Prayer is for us. And you know, we know enough. I'm sorry, and we know enough about the placebo effect to actually know that some people who believe that they will get past something get past it because of that.
Sylvia, and then I had a thought to share with you, Mark.
Okay. This is a very personal story, and I'm sort of reluctant to share it, but it's very topical, so I will. Because then it becomes a story and not sort of life. I don't know how to quite explain that, but my father was told before he died that this would be his last Rosh Hashanah by the doctor. And probably he wouldn't live to see Yom Kippur. And I was sitting at Temple, Israel, with him all through Rosh Hashanah, and I knew that, and he knew that. We knew it together. And, you know, there's no question it was the most poignant one of my life, and it was realistic, and it was, but he did die before Yom Kippur. I don't believe that it was from an evil decree, you know?
I was going to say, Mark, that about changing a decree, I think it really comes down to how we can live in the face of uncertainty. I was meditating a couple of weeks ago, and I often light a candle, and I noticed that there was a draft in the room or something. The candle started to go out, the flame got really small, and I thought, you know, what if that were my life? I don't know if that's going to come back or if it's going to go out. I really don't know. And, you know, using reason, one could close the door or build something else, or, you know, make it so it doesn't go out. But you always come down, eventually you come back to that place of uncertainty where you really don't know. And I think that's where Yom Kippur brings us, to that place. There were a few thoughts here. And Sheila, I know you wanted to say something.
No, Mitch, I'm just wondering, given that story about with your colleague, your story about your conservative colleague,
yes.
Are you asking him to make a leap of faith, or are you asking him just to say something? That's what you're asking. So you want him to believe on some level?
No. The belief is very different from leap of faith.
Okay, what's the difference?
A belief is a box that you put yourself in, and it's a construction of dogma that protects you from the outside world, and you have a belief that it will work. Beliefs aren't rational at all. Faith is, you know, we've been in the business long enough. You're a hospice chaplain. You've seen people recover and extend life beyond all expectancy. I've seen it. And I had this experience many years ago. Close friends had a perfect life, perfect existence, perfect children, perfect marriage, everything perfect. And a son married a perfect woman who had an old lady stroke. There's a 20-year-old something. Had a stroke that was devastating, and she was in intensive care. And the parents didn't know what to do. And I went and sat with them, and they didn't know whether to pray that she lived or whether she died. Because if she died, then her son would be free, to go on with his life. And if she lived in this greatly impaired state, he would be shackled, was the way they felt it. And so they didn't know, and the ambivalence was killing them. Well, not literally killing them, but they were and I said, pray one way or the other, but pray 100%. And they said, well, what does it mean to pray 100%? Pray she dies, she's released from the world, or pray that she recovers 100%. I said, but she can't recover 100%. He says, you don't know. Why hedge your prayers? Don't hedge your prayer. Well, then it was obvious. They prayed that she recovered 100%. She recovered maybe 20%. She's still in the world. She's the mother of 2 children. They're still married. He is revered in the Orthodox community because he didn't divorce his wife. The children have grown to take care of their mother. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows, right?
Robert.
You said it best once. It might have been about the same story, but you said, we don't have a clue about how anything works, so give it your best shot.
Mark said it beautifully, but he's more trustworthy than I. He's a neurologist.
We'll repeat what Bob just said. You don't really know, so give it your best shot.
You don't have a clue about how anything works, so give it your best shot.
That's right. One or two more.
But I've also heard in many of our classes over the years, Mitch, where you have said you can also pray for the release of the hostage, the release of the soul from the body that's keeping it hostage.
When the person is unmitigated pain, when we all wrestle with this. When the person's no longer able to fulfill a mitzvah, you're still able to fulfill a mitzvah by caring for the person, but not at the person's expense. This is end-of-life issues. But that's what Yom Kippur is. Yom Kippur is an end-of-life issue. That's right. Hi, Gefalt.
Now, speaking of endings, now Michael Gravert was going to blow the shofar for
right,
us.
But he's
going to come here, or should we going to meet him there?
When we finish, we'll go upstairs, if you like. And you give the choir some exposure. In other words, they can't get away with mediocrity if you're there.
Right.
And it will also begin to tone us up, or pump us up.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll mention, in addition to the High Holy Day services that will be here, there's also, we'll be here for the Sabbath between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, known as Shabbat Shuvah, when the theme of return is a major theme on that service. And we'll have, in addition to our regular 7:30 service that evening, there will be a special service earlier that evening at 6:30 in the chapel. That will be very similar to the candlelit service we did for Slichot, but using more exotic-sounding music. So that will be very resonant with the theme of that evening. So let me end with a prayer, if I may, for the coming new year. May the coming year be for us a time for enhancing the quality of our lives, enriching their content, deepening their meaning. Help us to keep our minds alive. May we be open to new ideas, entertain challenging doubts, re-examine long-held opinions, nurture a lively curiosity, and strive to add to our store of knowledge. Help us to keep our hearts alive. May we develop greater compassion, be receptive to new friendships, and grow more sensitive to the beauty that surrounds us. Help us to keep our souls alive. May we be attentive to the craving for friendship and family. And help us keep our faith alive. May we be sustained by the knowledge that you have planted within us life eternal and have given us the power to live beyond our years. Whether our years be few or many, help us in the new year to find meaning and to link our lives to the lives of those whom we love, and to the life and eternal truth, the eternal faith of our people. Together we say Amen. Shana Tova.
Hi.